everyone. After listening this wonderful performance of the Petroshka for piano by Igor Stravinsky, of our special extraordinary pianist and guest for today, Gwhyneth Chen from Taiwan and also USA, we will have a little bit discussion also about life during these difficult times of pandemic in Taiwan, but also about her memories of studying here in New York, because I have to say Gwhyneth Chen graduated, of course, from the very famous Juilliard School of Music, started in Martin Canin, and also later with Byron, Janis, very famous Chopin performer from New York. And the very important part of in her career was the winning this grand competition by the Pogorelich in 1993, when she was invited for the master classes with Maestro Pogorelich, but also she got a huge amount prize that she donated, which was also very surprising. And she's with us. She's partially, most of her life, the dividing life between USA, because currently actually she lives in Los Angeles, but also in Taiwan. And at the moment we are connecting with the Taiwan, where she is now. Hello, Gwhyneth. Very nice to meet you. And thank you very much for being with us during this New Dance Innovations quarantine talks. Hello.
Hello, Jakub. Thanks for having me on Quarantine Talks.
Thank you very much for accepting this invitation. It's really an honor for us to have such an extraordinary concert pianist as you. So tell us, first of all, where are you now? We are in Taiwan, right? But where?
I am in Taiwan, in Taipei, and it's almost 11 o'clock in the morning here.
Oh, it's 11 o'clock. Yes, we have 13 hours difference because this is a really late evening here in New York. It's almost 10 p.m., but you have early morning in Taiwan. Tell us, now we are very interested, if you can tell a few things for us about your recent times in Taiwan during this pandemic, and how is the life there, concert life as a concert pianist? Did you have concerts? Did you play with orchestras? Did you have solo recitals? And tell us, we are very interested to know about it.
You know, I don't know why I almost feel like I have to apologize that in 2020, because of the pandemic, we had so many concerts in Taiwan. Taiwan became the music capital of the world. We are having concerts every night since July of 2020. The concerts stopped only from March until June. And from July, the concert scene resumed, and we had concerts every night in every concert hall. And they were all mostly sold out. So we're having a wonderful musical life here.
How many concerts did you have in 2020, by the way? Then,
so since August of 2020 until last month, January of 2021, I played a total of 13 concerts. And these are all in major concert halls. Of the 13 concerts I played, 11 of them were piano concertos with orchestras, and 2 of them were solo recitals.
But then, how is the situation? Do the people wear masks there in Taiwan? And how is do they need to keep their social distance? Is it like the same like the States or Europe, or maybe it's different?
Well, you know, that's what I have to apologize for. We didn't have a lot of cases.
Oh, I see. So,
so we didn't have a lot of COVID-19 cases. And but for the concerts, the audience had to wear masks. And before they enter, they all had to write their name and phone numbers on the back of the ticket. And the orchestra musicians also had to wear masks performing on stage. Only the conductor and the soloist didn't have to wear masks.
Okay.
Yeah. In general, everyone on the street, or especially going indoor to a store, or, you know, when it's a closed space, everyone wore masks.
But you know, you are actually the first person during these talks that actually is talking about this pandemic as such a brilliant concert life, because you know most of the orchestras are closed and also all of the activities. So that's very, very unique and very, very new. But I have a question then, or is this typical that there are so many concerts in Taiwan?
And every concert, almost all the concerts were sold out, or at least
sold out.
They're full, yeah.
So there's a huge need for music. But did you also experience like online performances, or it's in Taiwan? Do you have like online streaming of some concerts or not?
No. We didn't have. I'm sorry, but we didn't have anything online. That's why I couldn't even use Zoom. No, everything was live. And all the piano lessons were live.
Not having quarantine time in Taiwan at the moment.
No, we don't have quarantine time, or except for the foreigners who come to Taiwan. They have to be quarantined for 2 weeks.
So in this case, if we are talking about this, so probably also the teaching situation is very different than in the States or in Europe. You don't need to use online teaching. You can teach in person, right? Do you have students in person? Because you also do master classes, right?
Yes, I do master classes and also private lessons.
So everything happens normal, like in normal life, right?
Life is normal in Taiwan.
Okay, great. So that's very, very good to know that the situation is there very, very different that we are get used to. So, but now also tell me, because I'm talking also from the New York Dance and Innovation about the Chopin&Friends Festival, the festival that we have here in New York that is also connected with the Polish culture, but not only, and the extension of the inspirations for Chopin for the modern, not only composer, but also modern artists. And I have a question, because you perform a lot of Chopin. We can also find your recordings on Spotify of Chopin, also Liszt, but Chopin is your very beloved composer. So what are your memories with Chopin, with Poland? Because maybe you can tell us about your concerts. You had some concerts in Poland.
One of my greatest memories from my concertizing life is from the year 2000, when I played at the Chopin Festival in Mallorca, and then followed by a Chopin Festival in Dushniki in Poland a week later. Now, the concert in Mallorca was very, very unique and very interesting, because first of all, it started at 10 p.m. and before the concert, I spent 1 week at the monastery where Chopin lived when he composed the 24 preludes. And I also practiced in the room where he practiced in, and I used his bedroom as my dressing room. So it was a very interesting, not only that, it was a very unique experience. And also for the concert, the audience not only sat indoor, but they also sat in the garden. There were garden seats where one could only hear the music and not see the pianist. And for the encore, they came inside to look at the pianist. So that was the only concert I played where there were seats outdoors and where the audience could come inside to watch and to hear the encore pieces.
What was the encore? Do you remember which pieces did you play? Or
played a Chopin nocturne. Even though I played a lot of Chopin on the program already, but I played the Chopin nocturne.
Not prelude. I'm just curious. I'm just not.
No, I didn't play preludes. I played preludes when I was much younger. Later, I played more nocturnes. Yes. But
I was very curious because the situation of I was also once in Mallorca, but when you read the letters by Fontana, yes, that he was writing to Fontana about that sometimes that his room is like a coffin, like a very dark coffin, and he finds inspiration there, but it's very tight, and sometimes those descriptions are really dark when you read those descriptions about the Mallorca. But actually, I was very surprised as a young boy when I visited Mallorca, because I had the vision, probably this monastery is really dark, but actually it wasn't. It was very bright, and as you mentioned, the concert life is very active there, so they have a lot of concerts. So good to also hear from your perspective. Okay, so how did you feel the environment in Mallorca? Did you find a lot of inspirations there for your future?
I was very much inspired. I missed the time I spent in Valdemosa very much. Mostly I missed the time I spent practicing in Chopin's room at night because it was very dark and humid and cold and even a little bit frightening. Because it was it was the silence that was frightening. It was so quiet. The silence was deafening. So that part I found frightening, and it was in the mountains at night.
Right.
Yeah, in the monastery where he stayed in.
But that was the grand piano, because he had the upright piano, as you know.
I practiced on the grand piano, but
of course,
the upright piano was next to me.
Okay. The brother, yes. Little brother. So that's about Mallorca, and which is actually connected to Spain, I would say, right? But Chopin was a Polish composer. But how about your memories with Poland and Dusznyki?
So it was immediately after Mallorca, I left for Poland, almost in the middle of the night, because the concert started on one day and ended on the next day. It ended after 12. So I had to get ready very early in the morning. I think I went to the airport at 5 in the morning for Poland. I flew to Prague, and it was a 3-hour car ride from Prague to Dusznyki. And the air, I remember so well, the air was so brisk, and the people were so beautiful. And the water was so clean. That's what I remember most. It was so beautiful.
Yes, but that was a spa, so that was also a special situation, because it's
okay,
spa,
so the water is different.
Yes, water is very different. And it was in 2000. So we had a Chopin competition this year. It was a few months before the Chopin competition, right? 2000. Because 2000 was in 2000 Ying-jeou won. It was the winner, as I remember, of the Chopin competition. So it was just a few months before, right? Because that was the summer of 2000.
Yes, I was there in August.
August, yes, and from October they started the competition.
The
right?
Chopin competition.
Chopin competition.
Right.
And have you ever been there since, like in Poland? Have you had other concerts later? No.
No, that was my only visit to Poland.
Oh, only. So did you have chance to go to Żelazowa Wola and visit Warsaw?
No, I didn't.
So
I
next
had another concert after that. So my memory from Poland was only Dusznyki, which was beautiful.
And great festival, one of the greatest in Europe for the piano. It's very prestigious and amazing. I was always, as a child, following through the radio, because sometimes, I was from the south of Poland. It's a little bit. It's always in the radio, so I was a huge fan of this festival, one of my favorite festivals. And I wish that next time when you come, probably you will have a chance to see Warsaw and maybe the Żelazowa Wola, where Chopin was born. But we are talking very much about him. So can we tell also what is for you, because for every pianist, Chopin is very important. It's like a godfather. And what is Chopin for you? What is for Gwyneth Chen Chopin?
I think Chopin is, for me, a practice of the most sensitive, delicate, and poetic playing in piano playing and in sound production. I think all the pianists should learn all of Chopin's music. It's so important to have all of Chopin's music in your repertoire. I learned almost all of Chopin's music, and I play almost all of them. I mean, I perform almost all of them. In the year 2010.
2010 anniversary.
Yes, that was only 11 years ago. 2010, I played all of Chopin's nocturnes, and I thought that was very, very important in my musical growth, to have all of Chopin's nocturnes in my repertoire, and in 2 concerts, I performed them.
You should record that, all this recording of all the nocturnes. You should do a CD, right?
I hope to. Because I think Chopin's nuances and his rubatos are so delicate and so artistic and so poetic. In Chinese we call it kung fu. It's a kind of kung fu, but it's more artistic, spiritual, and emotional, and philosophical also. So it's a kind of kung fu one has to cultivate and master. All pianists should, because you cannot find it in other composers' music.
That's great. But it's something also I'm asking that composers doing these interviews, but different also artists, it is particular element, musical element in the music of Chopin that maybe you think is the most important. Some might say, oh, I like melody. But a lot of composers say, we like harmony. But the question is here, a lot of people who are coming loving Chopin, sometimes they don't know what is the harmony. So they say, we love melody. But the melody and harmony is amazing, and everything what he's doing. But some might say the colors, some might say the sound. And I also very like much the ornamentation, because I think it was so little for this time. So what is your maybe most beloved element in the music of Chopin?
For me, of course, the sensitivity and poetry.
Sensitivity and poetry.
And the nuance.
Nuances, so details.
Nuances.
Yeah, details. One note, okay, the details, right? Yes, but also, do you think that, because in our festival, it's not strictly the Chopin festival like many others, but Chopin as a kind of the beginning of something new, which starts from Chopin. Because a lot of artists are always inspired with Chopin music, listening, painters or something. But do you think, because I know that you also perform new music, I remember because you had this concert with Piano Concerto Uskoskaya a few years ago in New York, but also you play some Chinese composers. But what do you think? Do you think that if composers are writing nowadays for piano, they always think they are kind of like a children of Chopin? How is in the pieces that you perform for piano with the orchestra or the Chinese words? Can you share with us a little bit?
I think all the composers after Chopin have adopted a lot of his pianism in their writing, especially in the melody and the ornaments. So when I give master classes or when I teach, I very often say, oh, this is very Chopinesque, because there's, it's the pianism, it's the way of writing that's very often, not often, but sometimes very Chopinesque. So
like Carnival by Schumann and Chopin. Yes, kind of postcard about Chopin. Chopinesque, right? But this is a great term, I never thought about that. Chopinesque, because there's something.
Or not only in composition, but sometimes in the playing. Sometimes I tell students when they're not playing Chopin, but they play as if they're playing Chopin. I said, you're playing in a very Chopinesque way, but you're not playing Chopin. For example, maybe they're playing Rachmaninoff or Ravel, but they play as if they're playing Chopin. Then they're playing in the wrong style. Then I tell them, you shouldn't play like you're playing Chopin. Because I think after you have learned so much Chopin, you play a lot of Chopin, a lot of pianists make the mistake of playing something very lyrical or musical or poetic like they're playing Chopin, but they're not playing Chopin. They're playing other composers' compositions.
But this is fascinating also, because as from the compositional term, when you hear 3 notes, maybe even 2 notes by Chopin, it's Chopin, but that's only 2 notes. But it's unbelievable. Nobody can find the answer why after 2 notes, it's Chopin. After the sound, everything, after the way how he connects 2 simple notes. This is a miracle. And also the question, how you can find your DNA, because composers have their own DNA. Every composer has his own DNA. If you look back, some composers, it's harder to find. Sometimes you have to listen entire sentence or structure, then you already know how he created this structure, it's him. But after knowing after 2-3 notes, it's very difficult. There are a few composers, maybe you agree with me, like Debussy also has something similar. After 2-3 notes, it's him, right? Because of the color. But if we are now talking about those colors, so maybe I don't know, because last year on the competition festival, also the Chopin&Friends festival, we have the artist who had a synesthesia, who was painting for them on the music. As you know, in the history of music, a lot of great composers, but not only composers, like Van Gogh and the other also painters, had a synesthesia, the connection with the sound, with the colors. But do you believe, because your playing has a lot of colors, I heard amazing colors in your playing of the recording of these, so different colors than Chopin, very different colors. But do you believe in colors in music?
Oh, I believe it completely.
Believe in that.
I always believe that the audience and the listeners not only hear the music, but they can see the music. Of course, not with their flesh eye, but with their internal eye. They can see the music, and we should play in a way so that they can not only hear, but see, but also feel the music. Okay, let's just focus on the seeing part. Music can be completely visible, and it's not only colors, but it's also dimensional. I believe it's completely dimensional. It can go up and down. It can go forward or backward. It can go to left or right. It's completely dimensional. Only that sometimes the performer themselves are not aware of it. If they're not aware of it to bring it out, then the listeners don't feel it.
Completely agree. Yes.
Yeah. Now, after hearing, they see the music. After seeing the music, they feel the music also, the listeners. Now they feel the music. I do a great research on this. So this is completely my topic. The feeling part, I totally believe that we can touch the audience with music, literally touch them with music, because music can touch their chakras. And that's why when they leave the concert hall, if it's a successful performance, when the audience leave the concert hall, they have reactions, physical reactions, like they can get very, they can be weeping, or they can be very calm, that they reflect within themselves, or they get in touch with a self that they were never in touch with before, or they can feel very joyful and excited. These are physical reactions, and of course emotional too, that they feel from music. So music is so powerful that they can hear, see, and feel. And that's how they feel the music, is that you have to literally touch their chakras. And that's another kind of Kung Fu.
So colors is associated, of course, with the sense of vision, right? Because there is a things what you can see after hearing something, right? But I have a question for you, because about audience. So there are such a great things actually to talk. Of course, we don't have so much time to talk about this, but like when the composers are abstract composers, when they don't use particular maybe melody or something, but they work very much on colors and emotions based on those colors. So then they work very much on the 3D. They work very much also about the colors, but they might have dissolved shapes there, because they are working on abstraction. This sometimes might be harder for the listener sometimes in the modern music to understand this word. So my way of thinking is, do you think that sometimes Chopin also enter into this planet? I call it a planet because when I hear the last movement of the B flat minor sonata, which Schumann didn't like it, but a lot of modern composers will love that. Okay, because that's a completely different way of thinking. Even they play all the hands unisons. It's not so tonal, but it's a different planet of the dimension of the word. But it's harder for the audience to understand it. This kind of a reality. But what do you think about this topic? Because Chopin had also many faces as a composer when we talk about this, also about colors. His music had a lot of also experiments, I would say. Okay, so, and what do you think? I'm sure you've played this sonata B flat minor, and yes, the last movement. What do you think about this? I always asking this question a lot of pianists about the last movement of the sonata.
Well, it can be interpreted in many ways, but what do I think about the composition or performing it?
Yes, no, yes, about the understanding of the listener, even contemporary listener, right? Because they have to experience and feel it. They have to get into their body. So, but it's harder, right, for people to understand it. Why? But
I think the listeners don't know what's going on in that composition.
Yes. Why? But why?
Because it's a little bit, I mean, not from my perspective, but from a listener's perspective, I can imagine that it's monotonous. You know, they think, because it doesn't cover a big range, and both hands are in unison, and it's mostly piano or pianissimo. I mean, there's very rare, maybe once or twice there's forte. So there's no melody.
Yes, melody.
So they don't know what's going on. And suddenly it's over, you know, with a big chord, it's over. So we as interpreters have to make nuances and color with pedaling and harmony, of course.
You see,
but I honestly don't think if you play it alone, I mean, if you play it following the funeral march, of course it makes more sense. Yes. But if you were to play it alone,
yes,
you would think maybe you were practicing some exercise. Especially if you didn't play it with a lot, with your own interpretation. But yes, it's hard for the listener.
Yes, it's hard. But you know, sometimes you said that it's changing colors is like a kaleidoscope, because in this one movement, which is so short, it's like also the very condensed, like not so developed like the Beethoven sonatas or something. It's very condensed, even like haikus, I would say. Of course, maybe it's too far, but haiku idea, for example. And then we have tons of colors, because each millisecond you are changing colors in this piece, actually, right? So I feel this piece is very interesting, but it teaches us how we should also think about music in a different way. And I think that's also a great lesson, that Chopin was open for new things in his work as a composer, so that he wasn't always trying the same things, what he knew worked out, but also the things that didn't work. And well, Schumann thought it didn't work, but of course it worked. For Chopin, everything he knew it worked, but only Schumann thought it didn't work. But okay, it might be the starting point for the new generation of artists, right? Also, that the grandfather like Chopin was also thinking in this way, okay? Because he could compose normal fourth movement, that's not a problem, but he didn't want to, right? So yeah. he was very open-minded. But you know, I see you have a lot of also opinions and a lot of thoughts about talking about music, which is very hard. But you as a teacher giving master classes, I'm sure you have a very wide background, because you can compare, because you studied in Taiwan, yes? And you then moved to the States. You studied in New York Juilliard with a great pianist, but also with Igor Pogorelich, but Igor Pogorelich is based in Europe. So you had those three kind of, again, dimensions of teaching. So tell me and tell us, because we are also interested in culture, if you feel that the teaching methods and teaching ways in the different continents, USA, Europe, and Asia, is different?
Oh, the culture is so different. I don't even know where to begin.
to teach, I mean, teaching culture. I mean, you know what I talk, teaching culture.
Teaching also.
Yeah.
The teaching culture, the students are different. So you have to teach differently. You have to know what they lack, and you have to know what they have too much of, and you work from there. It's very different for artistry and freedom. I can honestly say that, and maybe this is too blunt, but it makes it very difficult to teach a Chopin nocturne. So often I get a nocturne from a student, and the nocturne is usually 5 minutes, and they would think that's not enough for a lesson. So they would bring something else, maybe a serious late Beethoven sonata or something. And they would find that I spent the entire lesson on only 2 pages of a nocturne, not even the entire nocturne. So now, please allow me to take you to one of my lessons with Byron Janis on Chopin Concerto number 2.
So USA.
So I studied a lot, most of my Chopin repertoire with Byron Janis. I studied with him for about 7 years, and he taught in the most interesting way, intriguing, and you have to be very open to receive lessons from him, to receive the way he teaches. So once I took a Chopin Concerto number 2 to the lessons, and I have more than one lesson on the second movement. So we worked on it a lot, and I think by the third lesson, I brought it in, and I was very proud about the work I've done. And I thought I played quite well during the lesson. And he didn't say a word after the lesson, after I played, and he said, "Now, please forget everything I've taught you and everything that you did in the music, and start over." And I thought, I've worked so hard on this piece. So now that's a different approach. In music and in teaching, it's a different approach.
And in Europe, it's also a different example because master, Ivo Pogorelich, so, but that's also European tradition, yes? Because Russia, and, yes. And that's also probably also different, you feel, like the States, right? Don't you think?
It's another way of, another approach.
Another approach, okay. So you see, we are always, actually, environment is always very important for us, even if because of our background, and our culture is part of us, and music is part of the culture, and sometimes creating culture, but it's also culture. So thank you for that very much.
There's just one more thing I would like to add about culture. I find that the most important thing about being an artist is to find a way to become a very complete artist. To become a complete artist, it's important to understand and to be acquainted with many cultures. So as an Asian who grew up in America, I thought I had the advantage and the benefit of learning, of getting the best from both cultures, both Asian and Western culture. So I just think it's so important to be open-minded to culture. And I always encourage my students here in Taiwan to be open to different cultures and to learn about the literature and the art, and of course the music in different cultures. I just think it's so important to be well-rounded and to become a complete artist.
Yes, but when did you start your love for art? So when did you start playing piano? When did you take your first lesson? And why did you decided to go for piano, not for the different instrument? Can you tell about this?
I started the piano when I was 5 years old, in kindergarten.
Kindergarten.
In kindergarten, I didn't come from a musical family. At the time, I didn't know other instruments. I saw our teacher in kindergarten playing the piano, and we were supposed to dance and sing to the music. And I thought, aha, that's what I want to do. I want to be able to move my fingers on the keyboard in a very fluid way so that I can make music just comes out of my fingers. I knew that's what I wanted to do, and I was fascinated by the mechanism
of the piano.
Of the piano.
So in this way. But the first composer that was your maybe love, which composer was your most beloved composer when you started playing piano? Do you have your own favorite?
I have to say it was Chopin.
Like many pianists do. They often say, oh, I started playing because of Chopin. I chose piano because of Chopin. I've actually found out a few of my friends say Mozart. That also sometimes happens. But
no, for me, it's definitely Chopin.
Definitely Chopin. So you are also the Chopin Chopin kind of inspiration and beginning. You see, so for you, your art also started from Chopin. So Chopin is your grandfather. So like for many of us, you know, I'm thinking, because it's a now great time maybe to hear some of your work and your interpretation of Chopin. As we mentioned, you perform everything by Chopin, also with orchestras, right? His concertos, but also miniatures. You mentioned about nocturnes that you love very much, nocturnes. But tell me also, before we listen, it will be a surprise what we'll listen, but tell me before we go to this piece, what do you think about Chopin, about a composer who wrote sonatas and composer who wrote also little preludes, who actually was going for the extremes, right? Because for something really short and really big. Do you prefer personally to play his miniatures or his larger works? But it's just personal question, you know, just for you, you know.
I think I prefer the miniature works.
Miniatures you prefer.
Yeah.
Little black poems, right?
Yeah,
You know?
especially at a salon setting.
Okay, miniatures. So also the waltzes, right? Mazurkas,
waltzes.
But also etudes.
Preludes, nocturnes.
But also etude. And actually we are going to listen with one of the very famous etude by Chopin, which is of course not the etude. And it would be actually performance from New York. As I noticed, it's from the Steinway and Sons concert hall. Yes, Steinway and Sons concert hall here in New York. So when it was made, can you tell us which year it was? It was brand new rather, right? This recording.
It's rather recent. I think it's 2017 or 16.
Yes, because it's a new concert hall actually. So it must be new because the previous one was, yes. So we will hear the one etude performance at your performance recording in New York of the Chopin etude from opus number 10. So thank you very much for being with us, sharing your thoughts, your wisdom, and also your experience as a concert pianist, telling about the situation in Taiwan. So have a great year, amazing concert life in Taiwan. Hopefully also maybe it will get better soon in USA so you can come back to LA, to your second home. So thank you again, and we wish you all the best in your future career. Also another concert maybe in Poland, maybe in Żelazowa Wola, or who knows, in Warsaw. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's listen the etude by Chopin. Bye-bye.